Welcome back. Do remember, all our top stories can be found on our website. That's channelstv.com and on youtube.com/channelsweb. Log on to m.channelstv.com to see us live on your mobile device. You can also download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS, and Windows phones from their respective stores. Besides the news and updates, the Channels TV app has an eyewitness feature. We encourage you to use it to share those pictures, videos, or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the eyewitness menu and follow the instructions. Now, in case you didn't know, every 13th of October is the International Day for Disaster Reduction. That is a day set aside by the United Nations to encourage a culture of risk awareness, disaster prevention, and reduction the world over. Now, this year's theme is Live to Tell, and it aims to mark the launch of the newly Sendai 7 campaign. Now, the Sendai framework is a 15-year voluntary non-binding agreement of the post-2015 development agenda endorsed by the UN General Assembly at the 2015 World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. The framework recognizes that the state has the primary role to reduce disaster risk, but that responsibility shall be shared with other stakeholders, including local governments, the private sector, and other stakeholders. And now to take a closer look at disaster management in Nigeria, I'm joined live from our studios in Abuja by the Director of the Disaster Risk Reduction at the National Emergency Management Agency headquarters, Mr. Al-Hassan Nuhu. You're welcome to News Across Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Now, today, October the 13th, is International Day for Disaster Reduction. How is Nigeria fared in this responsibility?
Well, today is set aside to celebrate how countries, how regional governments, how communities are striving in reducing the risks around them. And the theme of this year's campaign is Live to Tell, giving emphasis on the Sendai 7, beginning with the most crucial aspect of Sendai, the number one aspect, which is reducing the mortality rate. The import is to reduce the rate of mortality from disasters so that when disasters happen, they will come and go, and the affected population will be alive to tell what happened. And to do that, the Nigerian government, through the coordination machinery of the National Emergency Management Agency, has carried out a number of sensitization campaigns, a multi-hazard sensitization campaign on flood, on epidemics, on diseases, on communal disturbances, to ensure that less and less of these hazards become potential risks, so that lives are not lost. And sustained advocacy has been carried out also. That is why you find out that this year in 2016, the level of water that we have surpassed in some areas the water level in 2012. But we didn't have as much deaths as we had in 2012. We didn't have as much affected population as we had in 2012. We didn't have as much economic damage as we had in 2012. Through sustained advocacy, through awareness creation, through building the capacities of the agency itself and other stakeholders, Nigeria has been able to substantially reduce the risks of disasters.
Okay, let me ask you this. You're the Director, Disaster Risk Reduction at NEMA. What constitutes a disaster that falls in your purview that has to be met with your attention? How far does a bad natural incident have to have occurred?
Well,
before it comes, what's your definition of it that your department takes over?
Yeah, a disaster is any event that cause or threaten to cause large-scale destruction of lives, properties, and damage to environment, which is perceived to be beyond the affected community capacity to be able to cope with it. And this is the UNDP definition of disaster, and this is what also NEMA consider to be an operational definition of disaster. It has to be beyond the affected community's coping capacity. That is when NEMA comes in. And you understand that the Sendai framework has been remarkable. It's a remarkable difference between with the Hyogo framework, in the sense that the scope has been increased actually to look at not only large-scale disasters but also small-scale disasters once they are perceived to be beyond the affected community's capacity to deal with. In the
that case,
framework,
sorry to jump in. In that case,
in the Hyogo framework of action, much emphasis was actually on natural disasters, but the Sendai consider both natural disasters and also human-induced disasters. So we in Nigeria, in NEMA, we look at disasters of either man-instigated origin or natural hazard-instigated origin, whether it is from man-instigated factors or from natural factors. Once it causes damage beyond the affected community to be able to cope with, it meets our own operational definition of disasters.
Okay, good,
NEMA is obliged to support the state, and the state is supposed to support.
I take that on board. Sorry to interrupt you. I take that on board, but what I'm trying to ask you is that in what cases have you been able to reduce the risk or manage those disasters? Can you give us some instances where the disaster risk team, and I assume there's a preemptive connotation where you reduce the risk, if possible prevent it, or respond to it in such a fashion that the negative consequences are not as far-reaching. In what ways have you been able to achieve that, if at all, and where do you need help from the government to make this work?
Yeah, I give you the instance of 2012 flood, which led to the deaths of over 360 people, with a quantum of economic damage amounting to over 2.6 trillion naira. Because of the sustained advocacy that the country embarked after the 2012 flood. In 2016, if you look at the underground water level and the surface water level and the alerts coming, you see that the water level using the 2012 elevation has even surpassed 2012. But because of that advocacy, that awareness creation, that building the capacity of NEMA and other stakeholders, we have less impact, both in terms of mortality, in terms of people affected, in terms of economic damage. So this is one classical example of how risks has been reduced. And again, apart from the action of NEMA, you find that states have constructed more and more drainages. That is why the flooding did not come as it came in 2012. It's a concerted effort. Both ministries, departments, and agencies, and both tiers of government have played their role better because of sustained advocacy. And this is the kind of activities that we are supposed to celebrate today.
That's as far as we can go, sir. Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Nuhu. But I see. Thank you for making the picture much clearer for us, if you can hear me. Mr. Nuhu, Al-Hassan Nuhu is the Disaster Risk Director of the Disaster Risk Reduction at the National Emergency Management Agency headquarters. You're watching news across Nigeria. And coming up, pensioners in Imo State asking the government to pay their arrears. Stay with us.